All right, here we are. So I'm sort of doing this impromptu. I just jumped on Heather Ferris's channel, Live Poker. I just jumped on Heather Ferris's channel, which is Vegas Aces. My brain is all live poker coaching right now because that's what I've been working on. But I was with Heather for about 35 minutes, and we had a great live stream on her channel, Vegas Aces. Had a ton of fun with it. And while we were there, Casino Dealer Jay jumped on and was in the chat. And Casino Dealer Jay is somebody who interviewed me about a month ago. And I thought, I guess I was wrong. I thought that he said he was going to send me the link when the interview went live on his channel. And it dawned on me that I had not seen it yet. So I went on his channel and looked for it, and there it was. And I was going to watch it. And I was like, you know what? Let me jump on a live stream and just watch it with the audience of True Poker Dealer. And yeah, here's me about to watch an interview that I did for the very first time. The interview went about, I think it was an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes. It was a long interview, and he chopped it up into 22 minutes. Now, something about Casino Dealer Jay, this guy is really well known in the industry. He's new to YouTube, but he's putting out some really cool content, and he's a funny editor. Like, he put some personality into it. So I'm pretty excited to see what he did. I don't know how it's going to go for me. I remember being pretty wordy in this interview. So I'm super curious to see what the product looked like. If he makes me look good, if he makes me look bad, I don't care. I'm a good sport. But I'm curious, and I'm going to kind of watch it with you guys. Chad says, hi, how's it going? It's going great, Chad. I'm just sort of chilling. I'll be on here for about an hour and 15 minutes. And yeah, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to watch this with you guys. So let's see how this is.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay. Thank you for the kind comments from the last blog post, guys. I hope you enjoyed the last live stream, and I'm hoping you're going to enjoy the next one coming up, and it's on Wednesdays. So today, I have a special guest for this segment, and I am on break with...
I am Mark Shumsker. Hey. This is the type of thing he does. This is fun. He's like, it's like he's a DJ kind of on top of doing the thing he does. This is what I'm looking for. This is great so far.
Join the channel.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So could you tell us a bit about how you first got working into the casino and where it took you throughout your time in the industry?
Oh boy. Sure. So let's see. Long before I was True Poker Dealer on YouTube, I started doing online advertising for poker. This was back in 2004 I started. So I used to play online poker. I would play like live in casinos too. I would go to Foxwoods and Turning Stone sometimes. And just through that familiarity with poker, I ended up kind of being very connected to it. And as an advertiser, before July 20th of 2006, when everything changed, I was doing pretty well. But then overnight, I went from making like $1,200 a week doing that advertising to zero. And that was a very difficult day. I was actually at Foxwoods playing the day that I found that out. I was playing 5-10 limit with a full kill. I remember that. So, you know, that was brutal, by the way. Just to elaborate on that, like, back then, that was literally how I was making my living. Being an online poker advertiser in the United States when it was legal, and just like all of a sudden it was cut out overnight. For the people that play a lot of online poker, you probably remember what's known as Black Friday in the poker world. That was in 2011 when PokerStars, Full Tilt, Absolute Poker, and a few others all tanked. But for me personally, my Black Friday wasn't a Friday. It was July 20th of 2006 when the original, like, Party Poker, and I was doing a lot of advertising for Poker Champs, which was the Gus Hansen site. A lot of those sites back then just disappeared, and they stopped interacting with the U.S. as soon as this law was passed. And this law is a thing that 5 years later shut down all these other sites. So him having me relive this was interesting. At that point, I had to make a change in my life, and part of that change for me was moving from the East Coast out to the West Coast, and it was completely coincidental for me. I got into casinos because I was just looking for a job, and in a town called Deming, Washington, I was living in Bellingham, Washington, I was able to find a $75 blackjack course, and my girlfriend at the time, now she's my ex-wife, we took it together, and That was awesome that he just showed where Deming, Washington is. Washington is an amazing state. I'm from the Northeast. I'm from the Boston area, and I used to have this picture of Washington as this like place. This is so embarrassing, but I was young. I used to think about Washington State as like this place where everything was uncivilized. I'm sorry to say that, but it's how I pictured it. And I got to tell you, Washington State is an amazing place to be. It's super underrated. It rains a lot, and the people that live there intentionally complain in order to discourage people from moving because they don't want more traffic and stuff. But Washington State is amazing. It's beautiful. It never gets below freezing because the Pacific Ocean keeps it, at least on the actual West Coast. It keeps it so that the temperature stays up above. It doesn't snow a whole lot, for example, but it's beautiful out there. The states run the parks, so they're really nice state parks, and it's full of like life is the only way that I can say it. I really like it out there.
That was the beginning of all of it. So I actually learned table games first. Then getting into poker, it was about maybe 4 months into my time. They just kind of offered a poker dealer course. So I learned poker from somebody who I may one day open a room with, which would be fun. But his name's Matt, and it was awesome out in Bellingham, Washington, or Deming, Washington, for the Nooksack River Casino. And unfortunately, the casino doesn't exist anymore, but that was a great start for me to
He
get
found
into.
it.
Awesome. I feel like an old fogey when I talk about my time dealing poker, but I when I started, I was dealing. Well, they put me on Omaha High Low, and it was a 4-8 limit game. It was insane because where I was from, it was a lot of limit. And then 2003 happened. Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker, and then it exploded. And then all of a sudden, it converted from a lot of limit games here to no limit and tournament. And the tournament just took off. Um, Through my time, I never saw the evolution of a game like poker, like from that one point to after something like that happened. Now, from when you were making videos, it was about 8 years ago, right?
Yeah, I started in 2012 is when I first released them.
Yeah. So, from when you were making them in that time to now, have you seen any significant changes happen in the poker industry?
Oh yeah. So in 2009, that was the first poker room I was a full-time floor at, and when I came down there, like promotions were bad beat jackpots pretty much, and something that I really enjoyed having been firsthand a part of was the introduction of the really big dollar amounts for high hands, and a lot of people in poker over time have kind of hated it. But everyone's kind of gotten used to it because they know that it gets more people to play in the room. It's unlike a bad beat jackpot where if it's just kind of sitting there, it doesn't affect the number of people that show up. The high hands actually do. So promotions between 2012 and 2020 before COVID, the amount of promotions with high hands in rooms being like a regular thing has completely changed. It has dramatically affected the way that poker is played too. You know, there's a lot of people that treat it like a table game, where they literally come in and they're just trying to get whatever's being offered. And
Hey,
the
Joey.
room that I worked at, I remember the day that we first offered $1,000 high hands every hour. It had never been done before anywhere. The highest that had ever been done before that was $500. And I was a supervisor that day, and I was working closely with a shift manager. This was about a week before we released it.
Oh, I forgot
We
I
were
shared
scared to tell
this.
people because our competitors had more players than us, and they were able to just like turn on promotions in South Florida. And now this shift manager that I was working with is somebody that I was relatively close with, but he was kind of like, there's a lot of casino managers. It's like you get a bad guy, but way underneath the bad guy is kind of a really good guy, and it's hard to figure out who you're going to get in any given moment. But I just decided I was going to mess with him that day. So the instruction had been, under no circumstances do we tell anybody we're doing this until like 2 days before, and it really bothered me because we were really slow when we opened our room. This was really close to right after we opened the room, and so I just kind of decided I was going to go off the floor.
He was on the floor. There has to be one supervisor on the floor at any given time. And I called the director of the room, who I was also close with. The three of us, myself, the shift manager, and the director, helped open the room together. So we were kind of very familiar with each other in this way. And I called him, and I basically talked him into allowing us to announce it. But I didn't tell the shift manager. And what I did was I talked a chip runner in the front of the room who had a microphone into making the announcement, knowing that the shift manager didn't know. And I just knew he was going to absolutely blow up. But we only had like 3 tables in there. And so I stepped off the floor so he couldn't contact me, and I turned my radio off. And the very first $1,000 high hand announcement that was ever made, the result of it was the shift manager actually walked over to the person who I had set up to make this announcement when we weren't supposed to, from what he understood. He had to stop and say, I just did what I was told to do. I announced to the players that we're doing $1,000 high hands. That's what Marc told me to do. And it was just a fun little, like, messing with somebody. I mean, there's a lot of stuff people don't understand, that there's a lot of like razzing and all that type of stuff for casino employees. And
in that story, the way that Jerry is the one that actually did this. For those of you who know Jerry, he's the one that helped me create True Poker Dealer in the first place. My table's still at his house. Like, he was the chip runner. This is back right before he became a dealer. He was the chip runner who actually made this announcement. And he said that the shift manager walked over to him as soon as he was done making that announcement, and he went like this. Like, it was terrifying, except he knew that it was going to all end up okay. But I set him up. I set the shift manager up pretty hard. That was a really funny thing. It did end up kind of getting him to calm down a little bit as a shift manager. Camaraderie is a beautiful thing when you give someone a jab, but it's like with care and with like a joke behind it. By the way, for anyone that wants to make jokes when they work in casino, you always want to joke from bad to good. Okay, you want all your jokes. This is true for April Fools too. Like, you don't want to pretend. I had to tell my buddy this with another friend of mine. You don't want to pretend that you bought someone a car and then, surprise, it's only a rental, right? Like, you always want to go the other way. Like, oh, I rented a car. Surprise, you own it. You want the punchline to be better. So that was part of like what this was. But I forgot I told that story. But Jerry would tell it better. He said that, like, he got the look of death. Like the shift manager was furious. Later he was fine when we explained it. But it took him a cigarette to cool off.
But yeah, it was really cool seeing, like, that very first day. We did not know what we were starting in order to get competition and get players. We didn't know what we were starting when we pushed $1,000 high hands every hour. The room was absolutely packed, and it just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed until it was probably about 2017 or so when I was hearing about it in Vegas. They resisted it for so long. But yeah, that was he was pretty mad at me for about a day. But I mean, look, it's like you build that camaraderie by doing stuff like that, you know. Maybe don't do that at home,
but no, for sure. So, what do you miss the most about being on the floor and just being in that atmosphere and environment?
So yeah, I haven't actually worked as a supervisor since 2016. Now I'm an entrepreneur. I appreciate this question. I was the type of supervisor who was 100% employee focused. I understood how to give proper guest service, but I was really there to take care of the people that I was working with. And I definitely miss that camaraderie. I still have it, and I know you can relate to this because of what you described you're doing with your channel, and I love what you're doing. It's like taking care of people that are going to work every day, that want to have a good place to work, and they want to feel like things are fair. And I really enjoyed contributing to that environment and creating really strong, authentic friendships as a result of it. I was not the person that was ever going to let a dealer feel like they're thrown under the bus. Now, look, in a 10-year career, there were definitely times where if I could go back, I would do things differently, but they were few and far between for the most part. And yeah, that feeling like I could make everybody's experience better was the thing that I missed the most, for sure.
No, yeah, awesome. I do miss that too, that part of it. So
I used to love that, honestly. And I know some people that literally could move on to like bigger and better things, 10, 15 years in the industry, but they just can't let their close friends that work there um, deal with worse managers, is the way that I would say it. Because it's really hard to replace somebody that's good. And um, I can think of, people have their lives, right? When they come in to deal, me as a supervisor, if I'm handling the rotation, I'm making sure that things are fair. If I'm doing extra things in order to help the dealers that are working in that day when I'm the supervisor, it goes a long way. Like the amount of appreciation that people give as a result of somebody putting in extra effort to care about their experience is really cool. And that's something I definitely miss. This is interesting to watch because it's been a month. I don't remember what I even talked about in this for the most part. As I'm seeing it, I'm remembering it. But yeah, that was cool.
so um okay, so now I'm gonna say, okay, hey, so you're now the poker manager of the room and you have free reign. Um what would you do to create the best overall poker room? Better than your competitors, better than anybody else coming up. What would you do to create the best environment, not just for the customer, but just like you said, for the staff as well?
That's quite the question. I just want to say I don't have any idea what my answer is here. I can kind of come up with an answer if I want. That's a really powerful question. Like realistically, if he had a channel that was directed toward managers, which I think he could do, um, I would love to see how casino managers hear this stuff. Because if he interviewed a bunch of people with this question, man, this could make a difference.
Well, there's a lot of different directions this could go. It's a loaded question, and I like it. So, you made it sound like I have free reign to do whatever I want, correct?
Yes, yes.
Well, the thing that I would do, I've been a tech entrepreneur now. I actually built a promotion software myself with like an actual software development company. I would start incorporating tech into poker in an experimental way to try to amplify the game in a lot of different ways.
I want to qualify something. I helped build the software. I did not build the software. A good friend of mine was the one that did most of the work on that, but I helped with a ton of the user stories and a lot of what went into it. So I feel very connected to it. I own a piece of it, but it's not mine. It's sort of mine.
It's kind of the fun vision. Like something that we think about with promotions is high hand is a thing that you can do, but it's not very engaging long term. Like I picture something, and I don't mind sharing this with anybody because I don't know that I'm gonna ever do it, but I would love for somebody to do it. If you had a system where every hand was actually recorded by software, and say every single time you get dealt ace king suited, it records it, right? And if you get dealt ace king suited 5 times in a month, you get $20, something like that. Little things that can accumulate, that can get players to be more excited about little moments throughout the game of poker can really add a lot to it. And instead of just hoping you hit a royal flush, like what if you hope that you win 5 hands with 7 deuce and unlock that bonus, something like that, right? There's a lot of things you can do with that in technology. I was talking to a friend earlier today about the idea of cards that, there's so many times in poker where cards flash. And we talked about the idea of cards that you can't tell what they are by looking at either side. You need some kind of a glass device in order to see what the actual card is, and you look through it. Solving some of those problems, making things better. By the time people are watching this, I might have started releasing these already. I have content now that is meant to aid the TDA rules. The TDA rules are really, really well done. I love the TDA, and I'm going through and building that right now. If I could do anything, getting staff properly trained is another thing that I would definitely do. There's a lot of dealer training, right? I'm True Poker Dealer. Okay, there's a lot of dealer training that's consistent. I'm so impressed with how much the industry has latched onto my content and used it to improve everything. But there's not a lot of supervisor training that's done. Most supervisors, when they get to that level, they're given a run through and then they're just kind of thrown into it. And poker rulings are very it's like logical problem solving, and it takes in a lot of factors, and there's so many different rules where the wording is not clear on its own for what it's really implying and what you're supposed to do with that information. And so these videos are meant to supplement that, but training people properly is something I would really put a lot of attention to.
It's so true. There's not many rooms out there where they have a very good, solid supervisor training system. Poker dealer training is pretty decent nowadays, but it's still not on the level that I think it should be. But supervisor training is just all over the place. It's exactly what I said. You sort of get the rundown. Here's where the replacement cards are. Here's where, and you see where all this stuff is. This is the key. You got to do this. Here's the rule, blah, blah, blah. And then you just get thrown in. And a supervisor making their first floor call, there's a lot of stuff there. Joey says, I got a close colleague last week. I told him he knocked a full pint over a bloke who has a rep for being a hothead while wasted. He came to work the next day all sheepish and worried. The lingo that you're using, I'm super curious what country you live in. He came to work the next day all sheepish and worried. Was he a poker player in another property? Was he at work and he did that, and then he came back to work the next day and he was sort of worried? He wouldn't have been wasted at work, right? I want more info on this. Although you got the ... so I assume you're telling more of the story.
I think a lot of people don't understand, even people in the industry just don't understand how difficult it is to teach poker. There's a lot of situations that happen, and it's like, for me, when I was dealing, I'd be dealing late night, and there'd be a lot of people that are drinking and whatnot, and all of a sudden, things that I've never been seen in years would happen, and be like, how did this happen? And for a trainer to actually think about, okay, this can potentially happen, this can potentially happen, it's so different.
So this is actually one of the tricks in dealing poker. And if you run a room and you're watching this, or if you think about being a trainer or helping other people yourself, this is really important. Okay, what he just described is totally true. No matter what you learn in dealing poker, and this is true for casino dealing too, there's going to be moments after years of experience that you've never seen before. And the world kind of looks at stuff like this the way that, say that you're a football referee or something like that. You're supposed to have all this information in the book, and you're supposed to have experience, and you're supposed to know what to do and all this stuff. But in poker, there's so many more hands of poker that get played than matches of professional sports, that the stuff that comes up is there's even more variance. And that's why I say, as a supervisor, it ends up being logic problem solving, where not every single thing is covered, and you have to sort of go into it with the correct mindset, not the correct rule to follow. TDA rules, I watched their entire 2019 TDA summit that they had recorded, 7.5 hours worth of stuff. So many different times they went back to rule number 1, and rule number 1 basically says that management's decisions are final, and it specifically hits on the fact that sometimes the technical definition of the rule is not as important as the moral obligation that the managers have to create a fair result. And so in the 2019 TDA Summit, Tournament Directors Association Summit, where the top minds in poker get together, they talked over and over and over again about how rule number one, in this situation, just go to rule number 1. The idea is make it fair using logic and experience. And it's really hard to teach that, is part of what I'm trying to say here. So this is a good conversation. I'm really enjoying this video so far. Jay's done a fantastic job, and he sort of makes it entertaining. And I felt very long-winded when we were actually talking and recording this, and he's cut it up pretty good, honestly.
Difficult. And that's why, for me, I say it's harder to teach than a structured game like roulette or a game like craps. That's why I have a lot of respect for what you're doing.
So I never actually made my point. My point before was, if you are the one that's teaching poker, it's super important to realize you got to teach the basics whether you're teaching dealing or supervising, teach the basics really well. Give them that really strong foundation. And then once they have the foundation, you can give them the process for logical problem solving on top of it as a dealer or as a floor. And you just have to know, as long as they have the tools to get through situations that they've never seen before, such as call the floor in the right circumstance, etc. As long as they have those tools at their disposal, they're going to be fine. And it's almost expected and given that there are going to be things that they've never seen before. But if you prepare them for things that they've never seen before properly, it's okay.
Because you're sitting there and you're going through hands, but it is so difficult when you don't have the people that are there around you to kind of participate and give you that atmosphere. So
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing this up. That's one of the nice things that helps this. It doesn't make it that easy, but it does help being able to tell poker dealers just call the floor. But then the thing that I was just saying was floor training is very, very poor in general across all poker rooms. Like there's very few exceptions. Maybe ARIA does it well. The TDA does it well for the high stakes tournaments and stuff. But like floor training in general it's just not done that much. And they're the ones that have to really know every single detail because they're the ones that you call when something complicated happens. But I mean, to speak to your point, you said you've been dealing for a period of time, a long time, and things still come up that you'd never seen when you were experiencing that. I had a dealer on my live session yesterday on True Poker Dealer tell me, hey, I've just got my first job. I'm starting my first table in 40 minutes. What advice do you have for me? I'm like, whoa. I told him, though.
He was on my live stream last Tuesday, and he shared that he made $48 an hour for an 8-hour shift. I thought that I was really happy for him. He's in California, and like he went on, just like I said, in one of my live streams, he's like, I'm starting my very first shift in 40 minutes. What advice do you have? And within 6 weeks, he was really settled in and comfortable, and I was super happy to hear that. Joey said, talking about that other situation, Joey said, it was all budget. We all had a jolly good time over. So he said he works for a private club that runs games in the UK. So that's why the language talking about a full pint and a bloke and it's wasted and sheepish and all these things. I really like the language that you're using. I wish I could hear you saying this stuff in your accent. That's pretty cool. So Joey told a story about something that started off confrontational and ended up, as he said, we all had a jolly good time. I like that. That's awesome.
This happens all the time. I told him, listen, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you've never seen before, you've never been trained on. Just understand that that's pretty normal, and just do your best and learn all those things as you go. And your first, week to a month as a poker dealer is just a lot of learning.
You got to train new dealers to train themselves. That's one of the keys. If you as a person that's training dealers, teach them, here's what you need to know, and make it sound like that's it, they're going to get into the job no matter who they are, no matter what school they've gone to, and they're going to have this expectation that they know the correct rules, and they're going to be quickly given a rude awakening. But instead, if you teach dealers how to train themselves, if I teach all of you how to train yourself after you're already on the job, you're going to realize that the learning doesn't stop when school's over, and that there's a lot more opportunity to improve your dealing ability and improve your money-making ability. And it's going to be a better experience if you go into it realizing how to train yourself.
And that's the state of how things are right now. And I'm not sure that it can completely change, but yeah, we can make it better, and YouTube's a great place for that.
I agree. I think that the other thing that I really appreciate with regards to your channel is the fact that you actually teach the technique. So were there some people like throughout your career that kind of showed you that, or was that just something that you kind of developed over a period of time through experience?
So I originally learned a lot of my mechanics from a blackjack instructor. Like I mentioned, that was my very first exposure, and I like it that way because poker procedure is not taken as serious as table games procedure. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with the same chips, the same type of bank. Like a lot of the stuff is the same. The cards are still cards, and so I decided that because some poker rooms take the procedure as serious, I was going to teach it that way. So a lot of that is from table games, but it's also partially, like at least in 2012, it was partially universally accepted as poker procedure as well. And I just basically assumed that if I pushed it that way, it would turn into poker procedure. But I have come across so many different techniques and methods over the years from so many different people. That first floor job I was talking about, that shift manager that I was referring to, that I played the joke on, he was phenomenally helpful with a bunch of different experience from different places. And we had like 90 dealers and 12th floor in that poker room in South Florida that I'm referring to. Like we opened the poker room together, all this stuff. The collective experience from all of those people, like I never said I know what's right all the time, and I always tried to learn from as many of them as I could. We would do competitions for dealing, and like all of these different things added up turned into True Poker Dealer. And then I had people come from all over the world and criticize True Poker Dealer in different ways. The feedback on there is phenomenal, but a lot of people still say, hey, I do it this way, this person does it this way, I've been training it for 20 years and I do it this way, the WSOP says to do it this way, like, and I just keep incorporating more and more of those techniques into it in order to make it more well-rounded and universal. But there's still not one right way to deal poker, and I have to remind people over and over again, if you see somebody dealing in a casino, any version of poker, and the house says that's the right way to deal it, that's professional, right? I can't say it's wrong. It's being done in a professional casino. And so that's actually one of the challenges, is even knowing what procedure it exists out there. I have to be very aware of all the different things. Even though I haven't been in the industry, I probably have as much unique access to all the different variations of what's being done in poker rooms as anybody, because of all the comments and feedback I get between YouTube and a little bit on Facebook and, you know, these other different places as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, what was your favorite game?
That's super true. There's so many different types of procedures, and I get exposed to so much of it. And I mean, I really like learning about all the different types and trying to teach it. That's one of the things I focused on in my course. You know, you can learn how to deal poker on True Poker Dealer now if you join the channel, and I gave the multiple perspectives, and then throughout the course I do this. I give all the different perspectives, and then I also tell people, like, I don't like this one, or I do like this one, and so on. And I give my recommended one, but I make it very clear there's more than one way to do this. And if you see this one, you got to learn this one, and then I talk through it, and so on. And I don't cover absolutely everything, but I cover a lot. Joey says, you really don't have a strong northern accent, and you would not understand me. Heck, even people in my village can't understand me at times. It all happened after this shift, so he wasn't drunk at work. That totally makes sense. And, you know, some places, they allow the people that work there to play there. They come back, they can drink there, all that stuff. I've worked at a casino that allowed players to come back, to drink, and do whatever they want, and it was just sort of on them to behave. And I have absolutely seen employees of a casino go in, play poker, drink a lot, and then be like, uh-oh, am I in trouble, when they come in the next day, and just kind of come in like this, like, I hope nobody says anything. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But a lot of the time you can also work it out. And, you know, a lot of the time if a player's coming in and drinking and playing at their own property, the other people that work with them sort of have their back to be like, hey, dude, check yourself a little bit and see what it is that you're doing here, so that you don't get yourself fired or something like that. I mean, in some places it's worse than others, but you can definitely get fired in South Florida. If you work at one property as a poker dealer and then you go play at another property and you're completely out of line and causing trouble, that can get back to the room that you're employed by, and they can let you go. And I have seen that before. I'm not saying that happens in Vegas. I'm not saying that happens in the UK, but I've definitely seen that happen in Florida, and it's a thing in some places in the industry. So yeah, it's just worth sharing that.
Game of the deal, poker-wise. I'm not talking about this.
What's your favorite game to deal
really
poker-wise?
So I spent probably a combined 3.5 years dealing over the 10 years in the industry, and I dealt table games, craps, all that stuff. Now, specifically speaking, I didn't deal pot limit Omaha very much until the very end, and I found that game to be really nice to deal because It's a slow moving game where there's no rake. Like I say all the time, poker dealers are professional change makers. When you deal 1-2 no limit, you're constantly making change throughout the hand, like all the time. Sometimes you get 4 people to throw red chips in a 1-2 no limit game, and it's just crazy. Pot limit Omaha, once you learn how to do it, you're just doing some calculation stuff. It's not that hard. It's kind of chill, and the tips are great. So because it's always 5-5 and higher. I mean, occasionally you'll see 1-2 or 2-2 games, but I never dealt those. So I did enjoy that probably more than anything else.
Yeah. Why did you go? Well, I don't want to say why did you go. Why was it poker and not table games? Because like, a lot of people, when they're in the industry, they have that choice. They get to that fork in the road. It's like, do you want to be houseman, or do you want to be a pit manager and move up that way? And it seems like lateral positioning, but for you, what was it that made you gravitate towards poker?
Well, originally, before I took the course in poker, I went up to the poker manager. It was literally just a 3-table poker room in Deming, Washington. That was a part of the entire table games department. And I said, hey, I'd like to deal poker because I liked poker. I used to play it as a kid with my dad growing up, and then I played a bunch of online poker, and I played a bunch of casinos, and I never played a ton of table games. So when I got into it there and I learned it, they quickly, because if you have one big pool of people that are dealing both table games and poker, anybody that cares about poker, they're just going to be like, yeah, we'll put you in the poker room because you're going to get it more and you're going to handle situations better. So I became a dual rate after about 5 months at that job, and I was dual rating between table games and poker, but they would have me open and close the room sometimes. So then when I actually moved across the country from Washington to Florida, and I was looking for a job, Florida was an absolute mess when it came to gambling back in 2009. I was looking for any job when I moved out here. Cost of living was really low at the time. It was right after the 2006, 2007, I guess you call it a recession, I don't know. But basically, it was either go deal table games at the Seminole Tribe, which that was the only place you could do it in Florida with an enormous amount of competition, or go to one of the many poker rooms that were down here that were just starting up. When I came to Florida, they had no limit games with $100 max buy-in no matter what the game was. And they were opening rooms, and it's just, I don't know if you'd even heard that they did this, but Florida poker, for my first 7 months or so, maybe even a little longer, it was literally like people would play 5-10 no limit with $100 buy-in. That's what it was. It was absolutely silly, and you would have full tables sit down, and everybody would go all in for 10 hands in a row just to build up a stack.
You were not allowed in Florida at the time. You were not allowed to buy in for more than $100. It was crazy. I feel bad watching this. I never actually answered his question. His question is, what got you to start and go to poker at the fork in the road? For me, there was a poker room that was opening, and I liked poker, so it was a no-brainer. I don't know for sure that I would have done poker if there wasn't a table games job open. I also liked working in table games at the time. I had a passion for playing poker, but a job was sort of a job, and for those people that like True Poker Dealer, I super enjoyed dealing table games too. The money in poker is a little bit better, but table games is good, and it's sort of fun. Like, you can root for the players without shame because they're playing against the house, but it's like it's the house's money. It's not your money, right? I'm pointing in a tray here that I have, but the real reason I went into poker was because there was a poker room that was opening in the place that I had moved to, and it was a great experience that I got to have, and I just stayed in it the more that I did it. Q-Lime says, hello there. Hello, Q-Lime.
So that they could actually play the game, and it would just be gambling to see who would end up with that amount of money. People just pull out 100 at a time. But it was fun to be a part of that. I got to be a part of opening a room. I got to be a full-time floor. They actually offered me the shift manager position, and I turned it down because I didn't feel qualified for it. And I ended up doing that a couple of years later. But I was definitely passionate about poker because of the online advertising and playing and all that stuff too. But if I'm being honest, I could easily have gone down the table games route.
Oh, I did say it.
But then once I got into poker, it was just, I learned more and more about it.
Yeah, well, for sure.
pretty loud. That's cool. He did a great job with that video. It says part 1. Does that mean that there's another one here? Let me take a look. I don't know what you guys will see on the screen as I look through this, but videos. Hey, Con, what's up? We were just talking about you, man. This is part 1. Is there a part 2? We talked for so long, he might legitimately have a part 2. I'm not sure. No, not yet. Well, let's do this. Get rid of that. And here I am just chatting. Khan. Alright, so Khan just asked a question, and it's really enjoyable. Yeah, I was just talking about you because in the interview, I did that interview that I was just watching. So I just finished watching the interview and reacting to it. But I did that interview that I was just watching the day after you hit me up in the live stream saying, I'm starting in 40 minutes for my very first shift ever. Do you have any advice for me? And I told that story, and he put it in the interview. That's Casino Dealer J if you want to check that out. It's kind of cool. To answer your question, so you now have been dealing about 7 weeks, and it sounds like you're having a pretty good time. When a player wins a pot and show one card, do you flip the other one over? So the first answer to that question is, as a dealer, I never table a player's hand in any way, shape, or form. Never, 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 never. It's actually compromising the hand itself. If you, the dealer, table the hand, it's not guaranteed that the player's actually going to win. It's going to happen most of the time if it's a floor call, but no. The thing that you have to do if a player tosses one card up, let me get this out of the way, and I'll get this out of the way. If a player tosses one card up, let's say that you've got your board. This is a good example. Hold on. You know what I'm looking for. So let's say that, oh, this is a bad one. It would be like this. Hold on. All right. So say that they do something like this, where you've dealt the hand out, you've got the pot here, and all that stuff. And a player at the table is like, they flip one card and they got the other one here, they got the other one face down. As a dealer, you want to say it takes two to win at the showdown, right? Something like that. Something clear that allows the player to realize they have not completed their role here. Now, that being said, a lot of poker rooms do say if everybody mucks at the showdown and all the cards are in the muck and there's only one player left, they don't have to show 2 cards. However, while players are still in possession of their cards in every room, it should be a rule, and it usually is, that if other players are in possession of their cards, or say somebody else, especially if somebody else tables a hand, no matter what it is, even if it's, in this case, it's jacks and tens with a queen, but it's not beating this player they still have to show both cards. If they take this card and they try to muck it, you call the floor immediately, and honestly, if you can prevent it from hitting the muck, you would want to stop it at this point, call the floor, and get them involved. Because it is possible, even as crazy as this example is, where it's clear that this player is winning, it is entirely possible, let me move myself out of the way a little bit, it is entirely possible that this player right here does not realize that they have the best hand. Maybe they're somehow reading this as a straight, and they're saying, oh, I just had trips, congrats on your straight, something like that. So as people that work in the industry, we are not ever going to be you're never going to go like this. Never, 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 never. Now you have taken away their ability to misread their hand, and you have tabled it. And also, if they have a losing hand, say there's another player in that's waiting to show and deciding what they want to do, if they end up having a losing hand, now you've tabled it and made it so that they're revealing the rest of their cards. You never want to do that. And let's see. Joey says the UK has a law where the likes of our club can run games, but the most you can win is €100 per day. So we have a 10-man tournament, all money in, all money out, no limit. I usually deal. I'm not a dealer in any way, but want to break into the business. There has been times where I had no idea what to do and had to look it up during breaks. Super interesting, and I've heard of these types of clubs. I mean, listen, the course that I have, not to like push this, but the course that I have on YouTube right now, it'll teach you everything that you need to know, especially if you've been in that situation where you've been like training. Like, it's literally the perfect thing for you in your situation. And part of the reason that I've been hearing a lot about this is because my course favors your situation so well. I would say consider joining my channel, because you'll learn absolutely everything you need in order to make that transition. And while you're playing in these games, you can practice these things over and over again. Interesting. Khan says, okay, makes sense. Greg says, sorry I'm late, Mark. I mean, I just literally jumped on this live stream completely impromptu with absolutely no planning. So I made up that I was going to do this. My normal live streams tomorrow, I'm still going to be here tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. Every single Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, I come on. I should say almost every single Tuesday, 2 p.m. I've been doing that for a while. But Greg, it's definitely good to have you here. But there was no way for you to know. I just all of a sudden decided to live stream. Q Lime says, what kind of chips do you use? Looks nice. Well, I appreciate that. These chips are the Casino Ace chips. You can see a link to them if you go to truepokerdealer.com, training tools. I got these on Black Friday, so they were less expensive than you see most places, but I have definitely enjoyed these chips. If I'm being super honest, I don't like the pattern on the side. It's a regular pattern, and I like to feel unique and special. But I got these sort of like I got this table. Obviously, this table is not as nice as the one that I used to have. But I like this table for what it is, and I like these chips for what they are. They certainly get the job done. It's like Casino Ace or Ace Casino, something like that. There's a lot of people that watch True Poker Dealer that know a lot more about chips than I do. I'm learning that side of the business. I know casino chips. These ones are not sold to casinos. Casino vendors only sell to casinos a lot of the time, and it's sort of like that. Greg says, and just a little FYI, that was actually 100 pounds, not 100 euros. I appreciate that. I mixed the symbols up, being an ignorant American, I guess. Sorry about that, Joey. Feel free to correct me anytime you want, Joey. Obviously, Greg is not afraid to. Greg says, that's fair. Up for a hand? Yeah, we could deal a hand. And Khan says, what's your take on other languages other than English being spoken on the table? My opinion on that, here, let me set up for the hand while I answer this. My opinion on that is, so first, I am a big believer that there should be one official language at the table at any given time. And the reason that I am a believer of that is I think everyone should go into their poker playing situation with the knowledge of what the expectation is and what they might run into. That said, English has sort of become the official language, but I have no problem with it being any specific language, but it should only be one. I think it's easier because poker is a tourist game. Like anyone that's in town for a spell, right? They want to go play poker. There's an expectation that the language that is spoken at the table is going to be the local language just about every time. So, I feel sort of strongly that there should be one specific language, and it should be whatever makes sense for the room that the people are playing at. But I mean, that being said, my opinion on this is very circumstantial and case by case. If there's a case where it really does make sense for a room to allow multiple languages, I'm not going to say not to do it. I mean, I watched a brutal floor call on YouTube where two people were speaking English, but English was their second language in both cases. And the result was like all this confusion that led to all this other confusion that led to the supervisor having to go to rule number 1 for the TDA rules. And it's just like, it can be a mess. But it's one of those things that I still haven't seen there be a good solution for. But yeah, you can't, like, it's really hard to allow foreign language to be spoken at the table because then it literally begs for people to give information to each other during a hand. And I mean, the real rule is not that you can't speak a foreign language at the table in most places. It's that you can't speak it during the hand. Some places even gone so far as to say at the table, period. Yeah. There's a lot of problems with languages. Greg says, name your blinds. I'm with you on that, Mark. At Mohegan Sun, they say English and nothing else. Yeah. I mean, English seems to be the most common one in a lot of places. Let's play. Let's see. So for anybody that's watching right now that doesn't know, I'm gonna play a hand with Greg. I told him and anyone else that buys the middle tier membership on True Poker Dealer, if you are paying for the All Texas Hold'em lessons or higher, I will let you play a hand against me whenever you jump on the live stream, and this will be true up until I get too much demand for this, and then I'll figure out another system. But happy to do this for now. And let's see, I'm going to set up a total of 6 hands. And let's see, let's get these hands to be pretty deep here. Earlier today, I was a guest on Heather's YouTube channel, Vegas Aces, and Greg was there, and Greg made a point of saying that he embarrassed me in a hand recently, which was true. I mean, I don't really get embarrassed, but I understand what he's trying to say there. He got me to fold top pair aces, and he had absolutely nothing, and he won the hand against me like that. And I give him a lot of credit. And so it looks like he's coming to get some more. And I got no issue with that. So let's see here. All right. So I'm going to give, let's see. I'll give you the button and the small blind. I'll be the big blind. So Greg, you're going to be these three. Let's see. Can we see this actually? Where are we going? Here's one hand. So I need to move this up. Okay. Here's another one. This one's in camera. Here's another one. This one's in camera. All right. This one's behind me. So this one's Greg. This one's Greg. And is this one in camera? There it is. And this one's Greg. All right. So Greg, you're 1, 2, 3, and then I'm 1, 2, 3 over here. All right. And we're gonna play 2-5 again. I'm covering up your small blind. I think I fixed it since you commented. All right. Correct. You are cut off, button, and small blind. And if you notice, I did a little 1/3 off the bottom thing. That's something that I used to do in table games. And yeah. All right. So I'll pitch these out. All right, so let's see. My 2 hands are going to be first and second, but I am going to show you your hands. This is your first one. This is your second one. And this is your third one. And if you can't see them, I'm sorry. I can't look at the screen when I'm turning them over. So, all right, so I'm first over here. This is a fold. And this is a fold. So I folded my first 2. Joey said watched earlier too. Great explanation of splitting a pot. Well, I appreciate that. That's cool. It's always cool being on with Heather. She and I have known each other for about 4 or 5 years now, and it's been all good experiences the whole time. So, Greg, what do you say? What are you doing here? So, just in case you missed it, here is your hand. This is the first one that you're acting on. This is the second one that you're acting on. And this is the third one that you're acting on, all in order. Button and small blind fold. So, wait. Cutoff makes it 35. Okay. So this one's not going to fold. That's going to 35. And the button and the small blind fold. All right. So we'll go like this. That's the shortcut way to do it. Oh, we're like this. All right. And now I got to look at this hand. And this hand's going to fold. 9 deuce off. I'm not going to go ahead and play that. So you can win this one. And everyone else has seen it, so I'll see it too. You had Jack 8 suited. You can't stop me from looking. It is what it is. To be fair, I could always just look later. And since that one didn't even make a flop, I'm happy to do one more here. So now I'm the button and... No, wait, you're the button. Oh, you're the good positions and I'm the bad positions. Let's say it that way. All right. I assume you're okay with one more, Greg, right? Small, big. So yes, you're the hijack, cutoff, and button. That's correct. All right, so let's see. This hand's going to fold. I'll put these over here for now. All right, so you're first. And you're second. And you're third. So what do you say? I'll show it again just in case you missed it. This is your first hand. This is the one that the action's on. And this is your second hand. And this is your third hand. So what does the hijack do? It looks like you're saying hijack folds. Let's see. Button cutoff makes it 40. And then you're going to 100. All right. This hand's going to fold. And I'll just make change like this. And this is a terrible play, but because it's fun, I'm going to call 100 here. And it's over to you. And I could totally just be saying that for the record. So, what does the cutoff do? Cutoff folds. All right. So, we are playing for $242. And this is an all-in. So the total bet here is $225. While we're waiting for Greg to make his decision, Khan says, I pushed in on a table where two guys were arguing because one guy had a few chips off the table playing with it in his hands. Is that a rule to enforce? Oh, right, I have to figure out how much you have. No, you got me covered a little bit. So it's 225 to you. You have 245. I guess you can't see it in the camera, but trust me, you have 245. So it's one of those things where like you just technically the one who has some chips off the table in their hands is not supposed to do that. So as a dealer, you would almost like say it that way. Technically, Greg, you're funny. I read your comment. I'll say it in a second. Technically, you would tell the player, look, to me this is like a little bit much, but technically the rule is you do have to have the chips on the table. I'm happy to call a floor. Like when there's confrontation involved, you want to mention calling the floor, and if the confrontation escalates at all, you just do it at that point. All right, so we'll expose both hands here. So I'm gonna bring this in for the pot. I'll bring this in as well for the pot. All right, and you have the open ender, and I have top pair with nines. So let me put this over here so people can see. And this should be interesting. You got a backdoor, so you've got an ace is going to win for you, a six is going to win for you, and you also have backdoor clubs. And so we'll bring the first one. And I like that you said, I trust you, Mark, meaning you're the dealer, do me right. So here's the three of clubs, so that gives you a whole bunch more outs with the flush possibility. And let's see what happens. And another deuce. So I appreciate your trust, but you have to remember, Greg, that I'm dealing for me as well. So here we get nines and threes, and sometimes revenge is so sweet. And let us just take this pot over here. And Greg, if you want to come on tomorrow, 2:00 Eastern, you know the time. I will be happy to do this again. Um, pretty funny. And thank you for your trust. Let's see. Were these cards out of it? No, this was folded this time around. Let's see. We got 645. I noticed that, well, I can't win every time, can I? I don't know. I was starting to feel like you might. The nature of the way that you won last time, for what it's worth, you've been getting brutal hands versus me. I feel like my actual hands have been stronger a lot of the time, but this is pretty fun. I was talking to Heather Vegas Aces today after the live stream, and she was saying that she likes to run tournaments with her people. And I was thinking, well, maybe I can do that for people on True Poker Dealer by allowing the people with memberships to, send me their phone number or something like that. And then you can play a tournament where I'll text you what your hand is and everybody can watch. And so you're the only one that knows what it is. And like I would be the dealer not playing in the tournament. Something like that could be kind of cool. I'm not quite there yet, but I like the idea of it for sure. I also like shuffling chips. It's like it used to be so cool if you could shuffle chips. Now it's so regular, but nonetheless, I still enjoy it. Let's see. Greg likes that idea. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have to sort of give back to people who have been a part of the True Poker Dealer membership group. Definitely enjoy that. Khan says if player in seat 2 loses their all in to seat 1, are you obligated to get up and push them the pot or expect seat 1 to grab it? If player in seat 2 loses their all in to seat 1, are you obligated to get up and push them the pot or expect seat 1 to grab it? I would feel comfortable personally as a dealer as long as I knew for sure that they were covered. So like if seat 1 for sure had them covered like 1,000 compared to 300. If seat 2 just gets up and leaves after announcing all in but not actually pushing chips in, which you do want before you bring turns and rivers and stuff, you do want to bring the rest. You want to have players push their chips in then. All the time, no exception to that. You always want to have players push their chips forward before you bring the remaining cards, but sometimes there could be an all-in and a call after the river. If that's the case and seat 2 loses and gets up and seat 1 clearly has them covered, I am okay with you as the dealer monitoring closely that seat 1 takes their chips. There's a couple things to consider though, like if it's 2-5, loose change doesn't play, seat 2 might still have a couple bucks left over that does still belong to them. It does not belong to the new player, and it's not an automatic tip for you. It belongs to seat 2. There's things like that you want to sort of pay attention to, but for the most part, it is honestly okay. Say that it's all red chips or something like that, and it's a 2-5 game. I'm fine with them just scooting it over, but it is ultimately better if the player pushes the chips themselves. It's needling them though, right? Like they just went all in and lost. They're clearly covered. It's needling them to say, hey, wait, before you go, I need you to be the one to push the chips over. Like there's something wrong about that in my opinion. I wouldn't do that. Let's see. Joey said, Heather's tournaments were cool. I won a couple and came second a few times. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely something I would consider. I mean, she's done blackjack tournaments, and she was suggesting I do poker, and I appreciated that she sort of told me how to do it. Yeah, it's on my mind. It's something that I'm thinking about for sure. Greg said, I think you were talking about this earlier, but I'd love to see a live deck poker site. Yeah, me too. Long time ago. I mean, I signed an NDA with them not to talk about it for 5 years. It's already been more than 5 years, unfortunately. I honestly don't know what happened to that project out in Malta, but I would love to see that as well. I remember back then joking with my friend Jerry, who helped me create True Poker Dealer, and telling him, you want to, like, if you're tired of dealing with the players, do you want to deal poker online? Because that's sort of what the setup was that they were talking about. But something about that does sound very awesome. Let's see. Khan says, I never knew that. Yeah, I honestly forget what we were talking about, but this is it, so basically I decided to jump on today just to sort of see if people would watch if I did it unannounced, and I'm trying to pick a second day and time to have a live stream once a week in addition to Tuesdays that would allow people to sort of get more access to me when it's good for them, because I know Tuesdays in the middle of the day is not going to be good for everybody. It's sort of a brutal time, honestly. And I'm debating creating a large live stream product. Well, not product. Debating doing all of the TDA videos live and sort of allowing that to live in that fashion. Let's see. Khan says, can you explain when there's one big blind? Yes. The situation where there's one big blind most frequently is when the big blind in a hand busts, and in the following hand, the player who was the big blind just now and supposed to be the small blind is no longer at the table. And so then all you're left with is one big blind. Or if the player who just played the big blind gets up from the table, they get a miss blind button, and there's only one big blind. And in my experience, there's no big deal. Some poker rooms are like, oh, but I've never had an issue with that. I think that's what you're asking, Con. Joey said, I just wondered how it would work. Oh, and when there's one big blind, it's like first under the gun is the same decision that they had previously. Everybody still has to put in a big blind in order to stay in the hand, and it's pretty much a normal hand. If everybody folds, including the button, then the big blind just gets their money back. Joey says, I just wondered how it would work with poker. Would it be all face up and play for an ante? No, if I were to do a tournament, what I would do is I would have however many players playing in the tournament. I would have the blinds go up kind of quick because the goal would be to just have fun, see who wins, and play a tournament. So the blinds would go up pretty quick. Everyone would start with however many chips I have them start with. And say that there's 6 players, I would look at the hands myself, because you all would be playing against each other. I wouldn't be playing. I would look at the hands myself, and I would text everybody their hand, and we would flip it up if they were in at the end, right? So I would muck it if they were not going to be in at the end, and if they were going to be in at the end, then they would be in at the end. And it would sort of just be like that. Greg says kind of like a turbo format. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, like, online now you see some of the crazy turbos. My goal, if I'm doing like a 6 or 9 handed tournament, 9 I think would be a lot because I'd have to text 9 individual people. But maybe I could have people play 2 different stacks, sort of like Greg and I did. But yeah, I would have to get people's numbers. Maybe I would Facebook message, whatever it is that makes sense here. But I would send them their hand so they would know their hand and nobody else would see it, because I can't show everybody the hands. Then we're just sort of like playing a weird version of poker. And that's how it would sort of go. And I would have to be like looking at my phone a lot. It would be something to experiment with to see how it goes, basically, is the answer there. It sounds like you guys would be interested in that. Yeah, I'll have to give that some thought for how I want to do it, and I would have to announce when that's going to happen, etc. But yeah, I appreciate you guys being willing to have a little conversation about it to see for me. But I am going to wind down now. I have a meeting in 8 minutes, and this was an impromptu live session. So I'm going to allow a few more minutes for questions like Khan has here, and then, or Khan has had this whole time, and then we're going to transition. I'm going to transition out, and I'll see everybody tomorrow at 2 p.m. So let's see. Khan says, it's annoying. Players mucking out a turn. How do you handle that? Oh, it was a question. Let's see. The first thing that you do is when a player mucks out a turn, you address it. So you say, please act in turn. If they continue to do it, you say, you have to be serious about it, right? And I know it can affect your tips and stuff, but you have to say, hey, listen, I'm the dealer. Part of my job is to make sure that the game is played the way it's supposed to be played. I need you to please act in turn. Acting out of turn over and over again like this, I have no choice but to call a supervisor, something like that, right? It's a lot easier to be in the moment with the actual player for what it's worth and figure out how to handle it. But at the same time, like, if you've got a situation where a player is absolutely tilted and they're mucking out a turn because they're absolutely tilted, that's not the time to like needle them with this. But if it's just somebody that's being careless, you got to like get them to realize, hey, you have to do this. And I would say if you tell somebody a couple times to act in turn and they're not doing it, either the third time call a supervisor, or when you get up from the table, before you go to your next table, tell somebody, hey, this player keeps acting out of turn. I've told him not to. Tell the dealer that's coming in, hey, I've told seat 6 to act in turn. They keep folding out of turn. I'm gonna go tell Joe or whoever the supervisor is, so that the dealer feels like that they have support and this has already been brought up, and you're not just sort of like giving them this impossible situation, because it really does stink when over and over and over again a dealer warns somebody at the table 3 times, and the next dealer warns them 3 times, and the next dealer warns them 3 times, and nothing ever happens. So thank you for that question. Thank you guys for chilling with me for a bit, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, 2 p.m. Con says I actually do have a supervisor named Joe. That's awesome. All right, take it easy, everybody.